wanna sing, but I can't speak. I'm paralyzed when you're next to me, running on dreams, 'cause I can't see how this could be reality. You're holding me close, but I don't know. Do I let you in? Do I let it show? All of my fears and all of these ghosts are the only thing.
Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to Morning Coffee with Rick Alexander. Before we get going, I just want to say a couple of things. One, if you do listen to Morning Coffee regularly and you feel that there is something that you would like to expand upon in life, or something you're getting stuck with, or something that you think you would just appreciate to hear my sort of take, I think by over 100 episodes in, you guys kind of understand like how I approach complex issues and problems. And if I can add to it, if you reach out to me and say like, oh, I think it'd be cool to have a morning coffee on this, if I can add to it, I will. If I don't do it, it's because I don't think that I have anything valuable to add to the conversation. And there's nothing I hate more than content creators that speak up when they don't have anything to say or any value to add. But if I do have value to add to it, well, I definitely will give it a shot and I will try that. So don't be afraid to reach out. And secondly, if you're working through these and you find yourself like wanting more of this kind of information, I've got the Clarity Academy, which is going to launch in March. That's going to be the second installment. The first one is underway right now. We're having some great breakthroughs for people. The whole course is designed to figure out who you really are, what you really want, and then to take a deep dive into how did you get the way that you are, your personality, how do you work best, how do you, it's really like, I don't think that we spend enough time in life on personal development. We're always being taught like the things that we have to know or should know or supposed to know and ought to know. And I just think that those sort of terms are the biggest killers of dreams in modern society. We're not ever taught to figure out the answers for ourselves. And so if you're interested more in that stuff, then definitely get that. Definitely talk to me about signing up for the Clarity Academy. And then I've got books coming out later this year. I've got Burn Your Couch, which is already out. You can get it at burnyourcouch.com. And so I've got a lot of different ways to make this material applicable, because I know just listening to it for 10 minutes a day, it can definitely help. But I would feel way better if you acted on the material. You really thought through the things that I'm saying, and you really did some reflective journaling. And if that's not enough, then jump in and do some coaching, and I'd love to help you out. So today's topic is something that is a little bit complex, and I've been trying to get my mind around it. And it's an idea that I have really been doing a deep dive on lately in my own personal growth. And this idea is based from this guy named Fritz Perls, who was a psychologist from Germany. He created something called Gestalt therapy. And if you're interested in Gestalt, definitely look into it. If you're interested in the things that I say today, it's so complex, and I think just like all other realms of psychology and personal development, there's some people that are kind of kooks, and then there's some really good information out there. But I've been working through this sort of handbook, and there's one idea in particular out of Gestalt therapy that is really, it's impacting me in a great way, and I don't actually know yet the full impact of this idea, but something to think about in your own life. And the idea is this. So we think about all of the different versions of ourselves, right? And like what makes up who we are. And we have an idea because we tell ourselves who we are, and we tell ourselves how we're doing in life. But there is an idea in Gestalt therapy that who you are is dependent on the environment in which you make contact with. And I think that there's some real validity to this, because if you think about it, who you are at work, who you are with your friends, who you are at a bar, who you are with your romantic, your lover, whatever, those are different people. And it's all still you, but there is a different you as you make contact with the environment. Now, the biggest thing that affects who you are and how you show up whenever you make contact with the environment is the background, and that is your past. That is what you tell yourself. That is what you've learned about life. And the biggest thing that affects how you show up once you make contact with the environment is your background. Now, the problem is that we are all confirming our own bias. And so we have these ideas about ourselves, and the message for today is to stop confirming your own bias, because you could make contact with your environment in a completely different way than you have before, and it could lead to a completely different life. So let me give you a really obvious example of this. So if you've been told you're stupid your entire life, maybe by teachers, maybe by a parent, or maybe you were only told once and it stuck with you, that is your background, and that goes into that is going to influence how you make contact with the environment. So maybe you pick up a book that could be life-changing for you. You pick it up and you read the first title and it seems complex and you don't understand it right away. And then you instantly go back to the fact that you're stupid and you remember that. And that's your bias. And so you close the book and you put it away. And so now you are not getting this opportunity to grow in a way. Maybe this book would change your life in the way that books change lives, right? Because I've had my life changed by many different books. One of them was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But the problem is, somebody had tried to give me that book, and actually this is a perfect example. Someone tried to give me that book when I was like 20 years old. And I had this bias in my life about people that make money or people that focus on money are evil or bad or somehow didn't get it by going about the right way. And so I had that bias. And so the first time someone tried to shove it on me or give me that book and tell me to read it, I was on deployment. I was like 19, 20 years old. And I remember I instantly thought, like, I had this background about what I thought about money. And so I looked at the book and I thought, nope, not for me. Fast forward 5 years later, I'm in Africa in this like really remote airport with nothing to do. It's 100 degrees. I'm looking for anything to just get rid of this misery of just sitting here in a pool of my own sweat. I come upon a book in a box that was free, and it said Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to read it. And then because I had nothing else to do. So I picked it up and I started thumbing through it, and it changed my entire life. You now are listening to this podcast because I realized that I wanted to get into business and start creating and start putting myself out into the world and make money that way instead of waiting for somebody else. Like, it wasn't a little subtle change, right? We are always authoring the way that we show up as we make contact with an environment. And the way that we're doing that is by a past story. And so the way that I've been thinking about this, how it's manifested in my own life, and the way that I can maybe stop leaving experience on the table is to think about who I want to be as I make contact with the environment, and then think about it in terms of that thing. And if you are in sales, if you're a business person, if you're an athlete, like, the idea of authoring an experience before you actually have it, at least to the degree that you can, is linked to higher performance. And that's pretty pragmatic and easy to think about, right? If you think about who you want to be before you go into a situation, you are more likely to act as that person. But if you don't author that in any way, what you're going to do is you're going to leave it up to chance. You're going to make contact with the environment, and then the version of you that is going to pop up, and that could be based on, again, your own internal biases, your old background. So stop confirming your bias about who you are and what you are. You don't know. Like, you really don't. And we're leaving life on the table because we have such a tendency to allow our biases to confirm things about us. And then the way that we show up as we make contact with the environment is leaving life on the table. We're not showing up in the most appropriate, best way that we possibly could. Again, so this is like an idea that I'm really just working through. And so sometimes when I introduce new ideas on the show, maybe I'll learn more about this in the coming months, or working with clients, or working through the textbook. So perhaps I will issue a correction or issue an additive and an amendment to this episode. But it's something that I really want you to think about in your own life. Like, how are you showing up in all of the different environments? And what biases are forcing you to show up in a certain way? And if you were able to get over those biases, what might your life look like in that case? You know, I didn't get over my own bias. I ended up in a situation where I had no choice but to pick up the book because I was so miserable, and it's just a weird thing. And the way that the universe kind of does usher weird things into our life, into the place we're supposed to be and the things we're supposed to be doing. But sometimes the universe will do that over and over and over, and because of our own bias, we'll continue to tune it out. We'll continue to miss the road. And you just got to be open, man. You got to stop. You can't confirm your own bias. You got to be open to every situation and what might happen. And then if there's a certain thing that you would like to happen, you can think about it and try to author it in a certain way. But based on what you've been told, don't leave life on the table because somebody told you something that may or may not be true later on down the road.